On the other side of the veil, there's no such thing as Christianity. There's no such thing as being a Muslim. There's no Bibles. There's no crosses. Literally, a cross is an implement of death. The only thing that exists on the side of the veil is love. So when you align yourself with love, when you go back home, it's like getting into a warm bath because you're used to it. You have this love within you, and you're going into back home to where there's lots of love everywhere. You don't meet God. You're enveloped in God's loving energy. But those people who are doubling down on fear, judgment, and punishment have a much harder time climatizing at first to the love that's on the other side of the veil. So always have to put love first, and that's the big movement that's coming. It's humanity first, not America first, because our souls aren't American. They're not bound to any country or any classroom for that matter. So when you start putting humanity first, things start changing, but it takes time. We're a very young species.
Welcome to a Broaderlands podcast. The opinions expressed on Broaderlands podcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlands podcast. Todd, Brandi, Robert, welcome to Broaderlands podcast. What an honor to have you guys on.
Hi,
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, I found you guys on YouTube. I don't know how I found you. You guys just popped up, and I clicked onto you guys, and I was like, yeah, I could jam with you guys for sure. I love your guys' insights, and you guys are very heart-centered, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you
the name,
so much.
Maybe you could share about your YouTube channel really quick, the name Augmented Teachings. What does that personally mean to you, and what inspired you to create it?
I created Augmented Teachings about 3-4 years ago, and it's a place where like-minded people can come together that are spiritually oriented, people that have moved past the whole faith mentality and have actually come forward with walking the walk of love, compassion, understanding, and working with the energy of source, working with the energy of God itself. And we have a lot of modalities that we talk about, practice. We have breath work, and we have like sound healing. Pretty soon we'll be doing shadow self work. So it's a place where like-minded people come together and help people ascend to the next level of consciousness.
Robert, I know you have a House of Frog. Would you like to touch on that a little bit?
Sure. House of Frog is a wellness center that my wife and I have built in our home, in our backyard, on our property. And in that place, we have meditation, breath work, that shadow work, and we have the different things to help people heal, such as ice bath, sweat lodge, thermal sauna, and other water therapies, as well as sound therapy and sound baths that we give after different ceremonies or meditations. But really what House of Frog is, Frog stands for full reliance on God, whatever your interpretation of that is, your understanding of that. And hopefully when people attend, they have a wider perspective of that understanding. But also our whole focus is to heal. We have been married for 36 years, and there are times that we couldn't stand each other. Sometimes our paths were going in two different directions, and other times it was like oak, Mm-hmm. And in those struggles, we've had conversations where, well, maybe this is where we part, and we've decided not to, and we just started building and building. And there's a lot to it, but basically these are the modalities that helped us heal ourselves individually and as a couple. And then we just feel an overwhelming burden to share that with people who also struggle, and our philosophy is just take what's good for you and leave the rest, like a buffet,
Love that.
Yeah, I love that. One of the questions I love asking people is how do they look at the ego? Some will say it's like, uh, for me, A Course in Miracles and Eckhart Tolle, I think they go a little too crazy with the ego. It's like just completely bad. But I believe you can create a healthy ego, and it's okay if you don't agree with me. But what's your take on the ego? Is it completely bad, or can you train your ego to be a more healthier sense of self?
You got
I
this, Brandi.
think, yeah, Randy, go for it.
So I actually co-authored a book called The Big E Power, and it was released in 2020. And my mentor, who I co-authored it with, he passed in 22, and there's no more production on it. So what we have out there is what we have out there. But basically, the Big E, that is our ego. And I do not believe that you can sever the ego, you can kill the ego, but I do believe that you can integrate the ego, because I believe our ego is the construct that makes up this human being, because we're a soul and then we have a vessel, but then something has to run this vessel. That's the ego. And then the soul overrides the ego. And then within that ego, I believe we have our conscious mind, our subconscious mind. So the ego is the accumulation of what we bring here as a soul, lessons we need to learn to develop. Our ego will create that for us. Our ego is actually our best friend. So when we lean into, from my experience and my interpretation, I believe that I am an old soul and I had a young ego. I had a lot of karmic debt to go through. I had a lot of lessons in growth. And when I finally started to awaken to the light of my true nature, that I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and that my ego is something for me to observe, it's like my Pokemon. It's like something that is a part of me, that is my symbiote. So when I can integrate that and train it and teach it and love it, how to train your dragon, like all that stuff, right? There's messages and everything, that there's this like alter part of us. And I believe that to be the ego. So I do believe that you can integrate that by teaching it, by becoming more self-aware. And I did not go the route of, my soul didn't have to have a traditional NDE. However, when I had a somewhat death of the old paradigm, the old construct of the ego, I created a new life for myself. And from that, I brought a lot of gifts and wisdom and understanding. And then when I met Todd 3 years ago, this month in June, actually, it was after I had already, self-published my first book with the rest of the authors. And then my mentor had passed. And a year later, this beautiful soul walked into my life. And when he was telling me a lot of the things that he knew and learned through all of his research with, all of his NDEs and things about people who actually did have a traditional NDE and they crossed over. When he would tell me those things, I would be sitting off camera just flooding in tears, because I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt like finally somebody else that didn't go through what I went through, but they could understand and they could help me, guide me through that. So, that was the long and short end of it all, boo boo. So yeah, but thank you for asking about the ego. I do believe that when something comes up for me and I feel triggered, it's like, I think of my ego as like a younger version of me, and I'm here to teach it, to guide it, because my spirit wants to be here. I love being a human. I love being Brandi. I love expressing life and love. That is my joy. That is my love language. And so I have to work with my ego, because otherwise I don't get to be here as Brandi, living this fabulous life that I love to live. I'm going to incarnate it with a whole new construct of a way of being. So yeah, that was that. Thanks.
I think I'll add in there a little bit to that. For me, the ego is not, you cannot separate it from it. It is part of what we are, part of our identity. As a matter of fact, it is a tool of measurement, right? It is the scales of how we balance our life, right? We're ego driven or we're not, right? And so it is the actual measuring tool. When we say, oh, how we used to be, or our past lives, or our past actions, another way to phrase that is how we used to allow our egos to serve us in one way or another.
Yeah.
I chose low level things. I have a lower vibration that scale tilt, right? And it tilts. And then I'm mad at ego and I want to destroy it. And I hate ego. That's like hating myself. But I can kill ego so that it has a clarity to the right path and the right actions, right? And I can heal ego so that in that clarity, I have the not only accepting that this is the path to do it, but I have the willingness to take that step forward, right? And then that balance starts coming back. So for me, the ego is that measuring tool. It is that scale of how I evaluate myself.
Love it.
I love that. Todd, would you like to talk on it or?
Yeah. Realistically, the ego is the child, and it has deficiencies, and an older soul will have the innate wisdom to keep that child in line, basically. You don't want the child to disappear. You want the child to still be there, but you don't want the child throwing rocks at windows. You know what I'm saying? So you have to learn to keep that ego in. Fear, judgment, punishment have to be reined in with the ego. Greed, fear, anger has to be reeled in. And we learn tools to keep the ego in check. It's still part of us, and there's good aspects of the ego. You know, it creates us to do better things for ourselves because we don't want to be in a destitute situation, stuff like that. But yeah, it's just keeping it in line and having tools to keep it in line. So you bring out the best aspects of your ego and curtail the worst aspects.
That's
I
good.
love that. Yeah, thank you. When I first tuned into you guys were talking about near death experiences, and I was like, wow. I had I always say when I went through the 12 steps and particularly the fourth step, I went through my own life review. And what I did was each person that I resented, I put them on stage and I reenacted the whole play. And I sat in the audience to look at it from a different angle, like the big book talks about. Be prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. But when I started to see that and understanding my own fears, my own conditioning, my own suffering and wrong perception, unhealthy perception, and that inner critic, and what I needed to feel to be okay, um, or where was I hurt or threatened, I started to see that in others as well, understanding me, understanding others. And I started to automatically kind of slip into their own bodies, and I started to like feel what they were feeling in a not as beautiful sense as a life reviewer, people having a life review on the other side, but I started to have my own experience, which brought a lot of compassion, brought me back to that more of that oneness, attunement with that oneness of life. So I love how you guys talk about that. And I was going to ask you, Todd, first, in that episode, percussions of fear and hate, you
Yes.
talked about how on the other side of the veil, the life review, the consequences of our actions, and remembering who we truly are, and the importance of love. You guys talked about in that episode. I love it. But what I think was an important thing that you brought up was how ICE agents and like Trump and them, and this is not talking from a really from either side. I'm talking about just being a human being.
Right.
Um, what do you think through their choices and actions and the impact they're causing other souls? How is their life review gonna look like, in your opinion, by
Well,
researching near-death experiences?
yeah, we talked about it in on that show, and there's different types of law enforcement. There's protect and serve. There's people that want to do better for humanity. We're going to protect you, but we're also going to try to take care of this person over here so they can achieve the things they need to achieve, so they can move away from this life of crime, right? And then you have different types of law enforcement, and that's the hunt and hurt law enforcement, and they're not there to help anybody. They're there to hurt brown people. I'm talking about ICE. And when they go back home, they're not going to be like, I did a great job for my country. Wait a second. Your soul isn't from any country. You were created before the earth cooled. And when you go back through your past life review, you will feel the pain that you inflicted on others out of a duty for money, a duty to a country, a duty to a cross, whatever it is. Those are all false idols. When you go back home, those things don't exist. Only love existed. How you treat other humans is all that matters. That's all that's on the passive review, is how you treated other humans. And a lot of people are selling their souls for money, basically. They are putting themselves in horrible situations on the other side of the veil. There are huge ramifications. All the pain that they've caused to the Mexican or Latino community will be played back for them, but not just through what they're recording. God is the creator. We are the experiencer. Not only are you experiencing, but that person that you tore out of a car, pulled out of a house, and had them on the ground, handcuffed, and what they're going to be feeling, you get to feel that too. And not only that, the family members that have to go through that, you will feel that too, because your actions, your intent created that situation. You know, money you don't get to take the money home with you, but you take those experiences back with you. And a lot of people will say, well, you know what, they shouldn't have been here. God has no borders. God has no borders. So when you say that person shouldn't be here, Trump could have easily said, you know what? If you have a taxpayer ID and you have a job, Hamid Adami, you're allowed to stay. But he didn't. He wants to hurt them too. He wants to hurt people. So not only is it the ICE agent, but everybody along that line, that trail of the intent and action to hurt somebody who's not doing anything to anybody. They say, well, potentially they could, but they're not. You can't hurt somebody. You can't somebody to prison on a potential. You can say that about anybody walking down the street. They're hurting people on a potential they might someday in the future, even though they're working and have families and have kids in school, potentially they're going to hurt us. And it's like, no, you can't do that on a potential. And once we reframe that, you have to punish what is done, not what could be done. And that's what ICE is doing. They're not punishing criminals. They're punishing people on the intent that they might do something in the future, which is not a good reason for that.
Thank you. And they're basically justifying themselves for being criminals. They're justifying
Right.
going against love. I love what you said in that episode, because you said, I love my country. I love law enforcement, but nothing goes above love. And that was
Right.
powerful.
Yes, the love is it. I mean, on this end of the veil, that's all you get judged on is love. You can say, well, I did it for this reason, this reason, this reason. If it wasn't love, then you weren't doing it for God, because God is love. Jesus taught love. So humanity first. If you're not helping humanity, then you're hurting God. Simple as that. It's real simple.
It's just like that quote. You can't help them, please do not hurt them.
Yeah. If you can't help them, please do not hurt them. Right.
It's kind of like in the Gospel of John, he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God and God in him. Or in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, I look upon all creatures equally. None are more dear and none are less dear. But those who worship me in love come to life in me, and I come to life
Right.
in them.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
You know, I'm not a Bible thumper. I use it as a reference because the other side always says this is the Christian thing to do or something like that. But in those allegories, not real history of things that happened, but in those allegories, the Good Samaritan, right, being passed by his own people. Literally, it's not just about someone that came in to help. It's about the people who left him there on the side. His own people, his own culture, just left him there, walked by and said or did things to him that was inhumane. And the lesson was the strangers came to help, right? That Good Samaritan, right? And I just think of that all the time. I'm like, what is the love that they are preaching? Because that love is full of hate. That cross is full of generations of murder and genocide of indigenous people, enslavement of the Afri people, the, even in California, the missions, that's a death sentence for Native Americans. And I see every year in school that people make models of them, show how great they were. I was recently at Knott's Berry Farm, and there's a big tribute to them in the front. In the design, the one that worked there was close. I said, "Hey, you forgot the graves. Not just flowers in that yard, you know?"
Yeah.
So I don't know the love that they speak of, and I don't want it. A love of source and creator that I can walk into a room and Todd's right there. Someone that I've just grown to know over the last year so much, but from very beginning can feel his energy and hear what he says, and he means to treat people right. And the same with Brandi. Before we met, we already knew each other. It's kind of crazy, you know. And my wife feels the same way.
Yeah.
And we try to radiate that, and we attract a tribe, and we just kind of spread that message out there about treating everyone nice, everyone not just nice, but without the intent to hunt and hurt.
The compassion.
Right? Because, like Todd said, it's only that person that he had face down, and the kids crying in that. I think in that podcast, he said, but that was arrest number one on day one.
Right.
And that guy had 20 arrests that day, and he worked there for 10 years. He feels it is multiplied that that person is gonna feel. That's the repercussion of it. By the infinite, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I look at just one scripture, 'cause it's my favorite, and it really says, faith without good works is dead. James 2:20. So when you apply that, you can think you're on the right side of God when you're actually on the right side of religion. Because if it's not based in love, then it's not on the right side of God. And that's simple as that. What are you doing to help humanity? And what are you doing to hurt humanity? Even if they're different color, different religion, or different sexual orientation. What are you doing to hurt them? Because that person is also an experiencer, and they're taking those experiences back home to play out before you.
Yesterday, we got this question from somebody out in our community, and she said, how do I know the age of my soul? How do I know if I'm an old soul or a young soul? And that was a perfect opportunity for us to open up a dialogue. And that goes to, what are your thoughts? What are your actions? What are your beliefs? What are your practices out there in the real world? How are you really going to act? Because you can't sit there in a spiritual community or in a religious community or some, nicety, everybody's all kind community and act one way and then go out there and believe something and feel something and then act a certain different way. That's showing who you really are, because we have three sides. We have three faces, right? I have the face that I show my family here, my friends, my people that I feel vulnerable with. Then I have that side that I show the niceties and all the other people. But then there's that other face that is only inside. We can only see that face in our mirror. It's not the reflection that we see on the outward reflection, right? Because we could lie to that face. We could put on a smile. But what are we seeing on the inside? That's how we know who we are. That's our age of soul. And we can recognize that within others. It's not that we're judging others. It's just, I can see how old your soul is or how young your soul is. Let me guide you, Anyways, I'm done on that one. But
I love it.
I love it. Yeah.
true.
I just did I recorded with Dr. Ed Barnhart. He's an archaeologist who specializes in Americas, specifically Mesoamerica. But we were talking about the first bishop, because the other day I was like, dang, what happened to Christianity? Because there's so much hate, especially on a certain side. There's so much hate and anger. When I moved to Ohio, there's so much racism. I started to experience. I always say I thought I was an American until I moved to the Midwest, and joking around. But Diego de Landa was the first bishop of Yucatan, and he has a diary that I have a copy of, and talks about burning women like just like nothing, like just heartless, like how does that even happen? Like it's
That's
disgusting.
that's a person who puts the cross on top of humanity, on top of love. That's
Mm,
why I'll never, I'll never, um, I'll never kowtow to a cross or a flag or anything like that, because if I do that, then I have the potential to put that above humanity. And really, what's happened is religion started going a little better. The religious right started going a little better, but then something happened, and the Fairness Act happened, was canceled by Reagan. And what it said is that news agencies can be biased, and you have people who will go to church on Sunday and listen to about some good positive reinforcement from the Bible, especially if they're talking about Jesus or whatever, and like love your neighbor and stuff. And then they spend the rest of the week watching Fox News for 3 hours a night. Fear, judgment, punishment. And that's what's happening is they're leading towards that 15 hours a week doesn't compare to that 1 hour in church anymore. So they're not getting their daily bread from love and acceptance. They're getting it from Fox News and anybody else, any right wing media that they're listening to. And people don't realize this right wing media is not the word of God. They may be pro religion, but they're not pro God. There's a big difference. People think, oh, they're the same thing. They're not the same thing. God's an ocean of benevolent energy that creates all things through vibration. Everything here vibrates and has a certain frequency that creates the actual physical thing. While religion is a interpretation of a book. That's why there's so many different religions based on each of the main script, each of the main books. The Quran and the Bible. They all have different variations because they all have different interpretations of it. They're just interpretations of a book. On the other side of the veil, there's no such thing as Christianity. There's no such thing as being a Muslim. There's no Bibles. There's no crosses. Literally, a cross is an implement of death. The only thing that exists on the side of the veil is love. So when you align yourself with love, when you go back home, it's like getting into a warm bath because you're used to it. You have this love within you, and you're going into back home to where there's lots of love everywhere. You don't meet God. You're enveloped in God's loving energy. But those people who are doubling down on fear, judgment, and punishment have a much harder time climatizing at first to the love that's on the other side of the veil. So always have to put love first, and that's the big movement that's coming. It's humanity first, not America first, because our souls aren't American. They're not bound to any country or any classroom for that matter. So um, when you start putting humanity first, things start changing, but it takes time. We're a very young species.
mm. Yeah,
I
thank
believe
you.
having conversations like this helps.
That's right.
That's why we are not, going to back down. We are determined to make this happen.
Right.
Yeah, I think Marianne Williamson, she says they're not being able to talk about these kind of topics is why we got into this mess in the first place, and a lot of people say don't talk about religion or politics, and
Hmm.
I think an awakening is more not an unhealthy ego sensitive, but you're more life sensitive. You're less identified with the labels and the flags, and like you were saying earlier, um, and you care about more the life in general. You care about the road and running across the street, or just that person. Or you're not so identified with the spacesuit. That scripture, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. That comes to life in a whole deeper level, at least for me. And I can see God in you and everyone else, and I live that way. It doesn't mean I don't get mad. I always say I don't suffer from alcoholism anymore, but I suffer from assholism at times. But I have spiritual teachings to use, to fix that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I agree 100%. And people always ask me, to get back on the subject we were on, how can you tell an old soul from a young soul? And it's super simple. The amount of consideration they show for others. That shows an open-mindedness and willingness to accept without judgment, without fear. You know, if somebody's homosexual comes to my house, I'm okay with it. You know what I'm saying? I don't pass judgment because I know how that process works. You know, the LGBTQ process is something that's every soul goes through. So the more accepting they are of people, the older the soul is, the more judgmental and fearful, and the more they want to hurt others, the younger the soul is. They don't have the innate wisdom to overcome it yet.
I agree, but I'll also add that those conversations must be had. I don't care about people's comfort level. That can go out the window because their silence is allowing those people that hunt and hurt to grow, to be more violent, to their tactics to be more severe because the fear of speaking up, the fear of even having that discussion, you know. But thankfully, like here in California, you know, I see firsthand that in masses people come out to help protect each other, right? It's not like the media says where people are coming out and attacking police. They're coming out and being attacked many times, instigated, so they could be portrayed as, see, look what they're doing. That's why we're arrested, right? It's a big play to them. But for people in real life, you got to have that conversation. You have to pick a side. It's not a pick a side of Democrat and Republican or brown versus white. You're picking a side of what is the right way to treat a human being and what is the wrong way. You're picking a side of I'm going to choose love or I'm going to choose to support this hate through my silence. Right? You got to pick a side. Without that, you are on the other side. You are on the other side, even though you didn't have the courage to say so.
Exactly. Exactly. Good job, brother. Welcome back, Todd.
Oh, hi. So yeah, to add on that just a little bit, you know, a lot of people are like, well, the law says this and the law says that, and I always tell people God does not follow the laws of the United States. You know, God doesn't even speak English. God's language is love on the side of the veil. So when you think I'm doing this for God, no, you're not doing it for God. And you put a country above a human being, there will be repercussions. And people don't realize is that karma is real. God created it so that no soul could get over on another soul. Maybe in the short term, but never the long term. So you see these ICE agents that are pulling people that have jobs, have families, have kids in school, right? And they're pulling them out and deporting them because of the color of their skin or because they put a law over the human. In a future incarnation, you will have the same done back to you. You reap what you sow. Everything learned is earned. So you'll see these people, and maybe it won't be this border. Maybe you'll border some other country, but there'll be a situation to where you have to flee somewhere, and you'll be rejected and sent back, and you have to be put back in a place where you'll be uncomfortable again, just like they are. And with the whole thing with the birthright thing now, you're gonna have people that'll be sent to Mexico that never even lived in Mexico. They were born here, but their parents were here on work visas. You got people that have been here 30, 40 years. They're managers at Costco. You know, they have their own construction company. They have families. But since their parents were here on work visas and weren't brought in legally, so to speak, they're going to be sent back to Mexico or wherever, and they were never there. They were born here. So it's going to be a culture shock for them. You know what I'm saying? They'll be sent to places they never even came from because of the hatred for brown people by the administration.
It's not. It's not just the fact that it's a culture shock. They were sent to other countries or countries that are unfamiliar to them as punishment. And when you go to a country where you don't speak the language, you don't fit in, you know nothing about being a criminal, you are disappeared and you're trafficked. That's how it goes. And so that will happen to the majority of those people because they are being given away to people that do that. Right? They're being banished from the systems, purged out, and then they're given up to whoever's going to take them. Who or wherever they go. You end up in Venezuela. What are you going to do? Hi, I'm American. I don't speak English. You're done, right? You're done. And if it was really about crime, criminals, and immigration, remember, the POTUS and SCOTUS are a felon and immigrant whose child Baron was born birthright citizenship before she became a citizen. Let's start at the top. Anyway, I go on too much.
No, but again, that's the awareness, that's the awareness that needs to be present right now. Like you said, it's not about this side or that side. It's about, this is a war on humanity. This is a war on what is right for our souls. This is a war on spirituality, on energy, on vibration, and we're definitely seeing that division, not in the color of our skin or which side we voted, but in our energy and our vibration and what we put out. Like you said, how are we treating others?
There's a native saying, we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And there's going to be a wave of suffering coming with all the trauma that's happening right now. The addiction rate's going to rise, the mental health, all kinds of stuff, crime. It's just sad to see, because these traumatized people and hurt people, as they say in AA. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
Heal people,
Yes.
healed hearts, heal hearts. We have to remember that part. I didn't mean to cut you off, Boo Boo, but it was like, that was the message that I was receiving this morning from Spirit, reminding me that as I continue to heal and we all continue to heal together, +1 +1 +1, one breath at a time, one soul at a time, one interaction at a time, one conversation at a time, and as we continue to heal and embody more of that love and peace and harmony and all of that within ourselves, now we have that overflow to share with others and to share into now that collective pool that we're all in, the collective consciousness, the collective energy, the collective vibration, right? So sometimes people are like, well, what can I do? Start where you are, use what you can, do what you have. It starts within. If I see those judgments out there, where do I have the judgment within me? If I see the hate out there, is that matching the vibration within me? Right?
Yeah, I love that. I say that as well. But I think most people don't even see the suffering that's going to come, the repercussions of it. It's going to
Not
come,
yet.
and yeah, not yet. So
Not
just
yet.
trying to bring that up from the forefront for awareness, because it's
Yeah,
going to happen. We're hurting a lot of people
it
and a
is.
lot of children, and and I hope we can heal ourselves. I was telling Neil Donald Walsh when I had him on, the problem with love thy neighbor as I love thyself is most people don't love themselves anymore. So they're only
Right.
loving with the level of they as at the level as they love themselves. So
Right.
Right. A lot of people,
No.
say, when they pray to God, they're always asking for things. I want this thing. I want that thing. Your purpose of life is to develop your soul, is to learn to walk the walk of love. And you'll keep coming back until you do. To work the puzzle of unconditional love. That is your job. When you set a request to do that, that happens much quicker than asking for a Cadillac. It just, once you get that point to where you're like, oh, okay, now I know my job, let's go down that road, everything starts lining up. The first thing I did, I said, God, show me my hypocrisies. Once I did that, things started changing.
Ernest Holmes. One of Ernest Holmes' quotes that I love, and it says, "Life is like a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker that which they think into it." So what we think about ourselves, our beliefs, what we think about life, what we think about God, what we think about others, the law of attraction has no other option but to reveal that to us, because we are literally thinking it into our consciousness. And we also have a lot of other souls thinking into that same consciousness. So that's why I was saying, It's about what we think, but also what we allow. What we allow into our minds, into our consciousness, into our reality, and also what we put out there, what we allow others to. Not that we have control over others per se, but we do have control in how we respond and react. And are we going to create more of that, or are we going to create something else? And I think I lost my train, so it's all good.
No, I love it. Thank you. Do you think some of the Abrahamic religions believe in one life? But I think if we personally could understand that we come back again, reincarnate, maybe that racism will be reduced if we understand reincarnation or just study more life, near-death experiences.
Right. And that's one of the things is that when I know a lot of people think, oh, we'll just come here one time and then that's it. And you can. That is an option. But when you go back home, the first time a soul comes here, it has no ability to overcome the deficiencies of the ego and the vessel. Zero. A lot of those people that are here the first time are sitting in prison for heinous crimes. They did not have the ability to pull back, think things through, and do what was right for humanity. They were thinking about themselves, their own ego, their own anger, their own rage, their own want to punish mentality. And you can go back and say, okay, God, I'm done. Here's my soul back. But what does God deserve? Does God deserve a soul that hasn't even overcome the basic ideas of love here on this planet? Or do you think God deserves a better version of your soul, a soul that's learned love and compassion, understanding, and acceptance? What do you think God deserves? This one? Are you still racist towards these people over here, or you are prejudiced against this religion over there, or are you prejudiced over the old soul liberals? What is it? Whatever that prejudice is, you will not give your soul back to source, back to God, while it still has huge gaping deficiencies. God deserves better, and you'll come back and do better. That's the way it works. That's why our souls come back to different ethnicities, different religions, switching from gender to gender, LGBTQ process. So when we realize we're here hundreds of times to work the puzzle of unconditional love, if we plan them out. So when you finish your past life review, you'll be shown potentials. You'll finish your past life review and see all the glaring problems you had. You'll also see multiple potentials to where if you come back as this person or as this existence, you'll fix these problems. You come back over here, you'll fix these problems. You come back over here, you'll fix those problems. And you'll be given the choice. You want to come back? You want to stay here? Or do you want to go back? And you're like, I need to go back, so I need to fix these problems. So you'll come back again and again and again until you've learned that unconditional love. Then, when there's nothing left to learn, that's when you stop coming back here. You're not supposed to stop going to school, in third grade. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to keep going until you have a good basis of understanding to where you can continue. There's nothing left to learn.
But with the reincarnation, I think it's because Christianity doesn't teach that. They teach a savior that will no matter what you do, you could be the last breath before you die. Jesus, I love you. Take me wherever they say, abracadabra, and then you're in. Right? So
it doesn't work that way.
and they don't teach reincarnation, but even in the allegory, Christ coming back, that's reincarnation, right?
I know.
It's right in front of their face, but they don't believe it and they don't understand it. It's not taught to them.
That's why when you pick apart pieces, just certain pieces, they don't have the understanding that there's some loopholes in there that doesn't make sense. You took too much out, or how you piece it together doesn't make sense.
So I think as people continue to it's hard to let go of those religious things that are embedded from you, passed from generation to generation and stuff like that, right? Your neighbors, everyone's going to church on Sunday. It's hard to step away and say, that's not right, though, because it seems right to everybody. right? So there's that builds up that fear of I cannot step. I'm going to be a sinner if I step away from what they're telling me. If I question God, right? But I went through that myself, but I felt the more I took a step, and not really against God or anything. I just felt like I want answers to these questions, and no one had answers other than pray about it or something like that. But the more people, I guess, could say, stay open at the top, right? I never did meditation before, and I said, well, let me try it, right? I freaking never tried asparagus before until I was an adult. I freaking love asparagus. What's wrong with me, right? But I had a fear of it being bitter because it's green. You know what I mean? So the more they're just, people don't have to turn away from God or religion. They're, and exploring other modalities is not doing that. It's not against God. It's in search of a better connection.
Correct.
You know?
Right.
And so we just try to spread that type of like-mindedness.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize, I think Elaine Pagels, who was on your show, she could back me up on this. I believe that there was reincarnation in the original forms of the Bible. And then the Council of Nicaea, I think it was Constantine or Justinian, one of them took that out because they were tired of whenever they tried, the church tried to get converts, they'd say, I'll be good next lifetime. So they started saying, no, you only have one time, you have one shot. So you need to come with us now. They started changing that so they could actually start monopolizing, start getting more money coming in. Because people were like, I'll be good next lifetime. I come here lots of times. And that's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So, and when you look at it that way, there is a motivation for saying you had one time so you can get your money now. And if you look at it, it was in there. I wouldn't be mad at the people that say, hey, there's reincarnation, I'd be mad at the people who took it out and misled you.
Yeah, there's a verse where Jesus is saying Elijah is John the Baptist.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear. It sounds like it's reincarnation to me.
Right.
That's a good point. Yeah, real good point.
I wonder, I think back at the Egyptian, the weighing of the heart with the feather of Ma'at. I wonder if that's a life review. I always like to think of that as a life review to move on to the next world. I don't know. I don't know why that popped up, but
yeah, there's no heaviness. There's no heaviness. There's no anger. There's no judgment. You are awakened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why when we start to and continue to awaken up on this side of the veil, we start to adopt the whole idea of the samskaras. What other suffering are we creating for ourselves and others, which is really the self, which is God, which is source, in our thoughts, our actions, our deeds, and all of that. One time I don't know, I was doing something and I made a joke to somebody and they said, well, and I said, oh, you'll regret that later. You'll be thinking about that forever or something like that. And they said, no, I won't, but you will, because that's your karma. Because I created that, even though we were joking, right? But it held weight. There was some weight to it because it did. And I was like, oh, how dare you? But you're right. And it was a stranger and I'll never see that person again. But again, when if you say something or do something, right? And I get frustrated in my own mind and in my own heart. And then now I'm having this energy against this thing, right?
Yeah.
Thinking that Robert is separate from Brandi. But at your core, your energy is also the same source of my energy. So then when we merge back, then, now we're whole and complete again. And now I get to feel what I unintentionally was creating in my energy source, but that was also yours. You weren't even aware of it.
You're going to film me telling you, girl, you crazy.
Yeah. But you know what? It's like, and you don't even know. You're at your house,
right.
Yeah. But what I'm creating for myself energetically, he's going to feel that. And I'm going to feel what I created for him, but I didn't hit him. I didn't punch him. I didn't even say anything to him. He didn't even know. But energy doesn't lie. Energy is never destroyed, right? It's only manipulated and changed. So I literally changed the energetic imprint of him and me And we do that all the time and we don't even realize it until we live that mindful life. And like you said, you're human, right, boo boo? You're still going through the human condition. So you're still regulating your emotions. But now instead of escaping it, now you have coping skills. Now you have a broader lens for which you see your life because of the choices that you make. And yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I think spirituality is taking responsibility for your own life.
Mhm.
And I never did that before. Um, I love what Wayne Dyer says, how people treat you is their karma, how you react is your own.
Exactly.
And that plays
And
into
that
past life
really
review.
helps.
Right.
Mm.
Perfect.
I like that.
How would you guys define an awakening?
Mm.
Depends
An awakening.
on what part of the process you're asking about.
Yeah, I know there's multiple different levels and different. I don't think it's a one time deal. I've had many. And I asked this question because I've had some people on here that are like spiritual teachers, and next thing you know, they're justifying what's going on right now, and I can't comprehend that. I think you're more heart centered. You're more in tune to the oneness. You're in namaste consciousness more, even though you're still having this experience. I
Yeah.
just you're not identified with the labels and stuff like that. I can't comprehend that.
Yeah. And you know what? I can only speak for myself. Everybody's is a little bit different. Mine was profound. Once I had that awakening and I felt God go through my body, I was like, oh my God. Didn't have to know. I just felt I knew who that was. You know what I'm saying? The feeling I felt before. And then I went outside and saw my guardian angels. I'm like, oh my God, this is God exists. Kind of like borderline atheist, believed in God but did not like religion. And that awakening it's something that changes your perspective significantly. When you get that, then you have kind of an awakening, and you're on a new course now. That train terminal. Which track are you going to take? You're on this track right now, but you got to that point. Now you're going this direction. And once you have something that changes your trajectory in a significant way, that's kind of an awakening for me. And it could come in many different ways. And to get what you were saying before, some people are validating what's happening today, and as painful as it is to say, we have to go through this process. We have no choice. In order to get to the good, we have to go through the storm. And when it's the whole FAFO movement, you know what I'm saying? They did. When they start suffering, when grandma and grandpa start suffering, when the kids don't have food at lunches anymore, when all these things start happening, they're like, wait a second, this group of people said they were for the people. No, they were for the corporations and the rich. We have to have that, because if it keeps going like this, no side wins. One side has to win, screw up really bad, then the other side takes over. If in Germany it would have been where they sued for peace, halfway through the war, there'd be anti-Semitism going crazy in Germany right now, crazy. But since it was such a devastating loss to see the error of their ways, now you can't be that way over there anymore. They reject violence in all forms because it was such a devastating loss, devastating wake up call. They didn't get slapped in the face; they got beat up, and because of that, it created a whole new paradigm for that country, and they're much better off now because of it. So many people had to go through the process of losing their lives for it. Inevitably, in order for society to go forward, a lot of people have to sacrifice, and we see sacrifice right now, and it hurts. I hate to see it, but things have to go bad in order for things to go good. And do I believe Source wants Trump there? Yes, to teach us a lesson, about the error of our ways. And that's why he was allowed to be where he's at right now. He's going to show us, put it right in our face, how screwed up we really are.
Yeah. A reflection of society,
Yes.
Yeah.
what it's become. Yeah.
What's awakening for you?
Well, I think it started, when I first started to attempt to stop drinking, right? The 12-step program of AA, I only do it always do it as recommended. I've never had a sponsor or anything like that. But I took the step, they say to choose a higher power, right, of your understanding. And I chose the air. I chose salty air, Venice Beach, because that's where my dad's apartment was. And that's where I really liked to be. That was the best parts of my childhood, hanging out with my dad in Venice. So I would literally imagine the air I was breathing, salty. I would imagine myself being in his car and driving up PCH, and he had a Volkswagen thing so you could take off the doors and windows and stuff. And I think that's why I'm so attached to breath work, right? Because I would just breathe that in hard times and hard struggle. And I felt better. And I always felt like we're more than like flesh, right? But I didn't really know how to say it, articulate it. I don't even know what the belief was. But the more I breathed, I found that it healed me in some emotional and mental places. It helped with like depression, and I think that was my introduction to source. And then, I'm fast forwarding, but the deeper it went, I was telling Brandi earlier today, I don't read spiritual books. I've never read one except for Todd because he's my buddy and he just wrote it. Right? Everything I understand about he's the only author I know. But Brandi too. But everything my understandings is through meditation and downloads from source, right? And how things work and things like that. I mean, there's a lot to it, but and I got into because of my battle with alcohol, I ruined a lot of relationships, especially with family members. And also I have health issues. I had some major surgeries on my spine. I got a motorcycle accident. I've had like 16 surgeries on one of my legs. And I would use breathing, and it started. Loma Linda left me with a 90-degree leg and said, best we could do, have a nice life. And I told myself, I'm going to heal myself. And I just went into breathing. My leg is now stronger than my other one. I tore my rotator cuff. They said I need surgery. It's going to hurt forever until the muscle finally pops. I said, no, I'm going to heal myself. Right? And that belief system, I have no pain in my shoulder, right? Only when Todd forced me to go to the gym with him. And and that understanding of what source is and what we are, I just started awakening more and more. This is the course of over like 12, 13 years. And then I had in a meditative state, in a higher level of consciousness, I felt like I was right there. And it was an overwhelming sense of pure white energy. It was blinding. And even though I wasn't there physically, I was putting my head down because I couldn't. So it was so bright, but it was just love. It was just love. I just understood right from then that's what source is, and that's our job. And I immediately thought of in the Bible when Jesus says they know not what they do. So what he's saying is they don't know what you are. No. They don't know you are just pure love, right? And they kill and suffer each other in the relentless pursuit for that ego to be fed and healed, right? And they don't know that it's just love that will do that. At least that's how I interpreted it at that moment.
I love it.
No, I love it. I love it. And we all kind of get to and there's no one avenue to awakening, right? We all get there when we get there, how we get there. Sometimes I'm curious when I get to the other side of the veil and I have my all knowing, sometimes I'm curious. It's like, oh, was that supposed to happen? Was I supposed to awaken at that time in that way? Or was it because of my consciousness and I created that awakening? Or did it just, the timeline happened, the trajectory of everything, my choices and all of that, and I was on that path? But regardless, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in divine synchronicity. I believe in coming into alignment. And so I believe that it all starts with that seed. And then we water that seed again with our actions, our beliefs, our practices, and our environments and things. So I feel like there's always an awakening that's happening. There's always a potential for the awakening. That's why we're here, is to remember. And so for me, the awakening is that awakening to the light of our true nature, our divine self, and then living with that understanding. Because what do they say? Before enlightenment, chop wood, haul water. After enlightenment, chop wood, haul water. We're still got to live on this side of the veil while we're in these vessels, while we're having these experiences. And so to me, awakening is like, remembering my soul purpose, remembering who I am. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience for my soul to learn, grow, and develop. The end. The end, you know? And so there's all those different layers. I mean, even a dark night of the soul, that's part of that awakening to all the things that I am not, all the things, all the conditioning, taking all of that off of me physically, metaphysically, you know? So that's kind of, and it's interesting because all three of us here from Augmented Teachings, we kind of had our awakening journeys starting at the same time. So that's why, was it meant to be? Was it the timing? And that's how we all kind of came to be, because we had to go through that awakening process individually so that we can become our potential to us come together. Same thing like you, Boo Boo. You went through your experiences, your awakening, your journey to become this version of you right now so that our souls can come together at this particular juncture in time, space, right?
I think we were just soul texting each other.
We were like, okay, I'm almost ready. I got a little more dark night of the soul to finish up, but I'm almost ready, guys. I'll be there soon.
I love that. Thank you. Thich Nhat Hanh always says, "No mud, no lotus flower."
Right?
So,
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
You guys have any last words?
Different version of that, but yeah.
I'll remember to be clean.
You know what? Everything comes down to a choice. We have a choice in everything we say, think, and do. And at any moment throughout the day, we can stop, we can take a breath, we can remember who we are, and we can make a better choice. Choosing, are we going to create more suffering or more joy for us, for ourselves, and for the others around us? And really, there are no others. So that's what we like to do. At Augmented Teachings, we talk about it. At House of Frog, we do it.
We do the work.
We do the work. And then here we have conversations with Boo Boo on Broader Lens.
Yes. Yes.
I love it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you, Boo Boo, for having us on your show and for reaching out to us. And hopefully we can collab again with a better situation with cameras and mics. And we'll get this straightened out. And you did read my book. And did you like it?
Yeah, I did. I'm not finished, but I'm almost finished, and I would love to get you back on and have you guys on individually as well and talk more about your book. That's why I didn't ask any questions from your book really too much.
Yes,
I try to stay away from.
God, I appreciate that.
I know this is like a general for Augmented Teachings. Yeah. And then I know all of us, I'll speak for all of us, but I know we each look forward to, individually working with you and making some more magic happen.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
One-on-one.
Well, I'm going to end it with the Marianne Williamson quote. And she said, "Spirituality is the path of the heart and compassion for the human condition." So thank you guys for having compassion for the human condition.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Boo-Boo.
Thank you. We love the work that you do at Broader Lens. We love the work that you do. And we love that you are, to me, I feel like bringing so much content, so much good information to the collective. And so I feel like we're all joining forces here together, and it feels really good. I feel like it's all meant to be. I really do truly feel like that in my heart. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a break. systems, you know we make a way. Time to level up on the day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.